Hey guys, welcome to Raw Customs. I'm your host, Patrick Rapolo, and on this episode, we're going to be covering how to put together a Rocketeer helmet. So to start with, I do have a kit as well as some templates. If you're interested in either one of those, head down to the description area below. You'll find links there. Now, when I started my channel, the Rocketeer helmet was one of the first builds I put out. And since then, I've had a lot of questions and comments and have even been contacted to purchase the ones that I made for that first episode. So I went back to the drawing board, started from scratch, and did a new design to put out a kit for you guys. And this is the final product of what I came up with. If you're planning on making this helmet, stick around to the very end. I have a couple of tips I'd like to share with you and show you a couple of props that I'm working on. For now, let's get to work. For this build, you'll need the kits or the templates. If you go with the templates, you'll need 4 sheets of 5mm EVA foam. 12 by 18 sheets are recommended. PLASTI dip, spray paint, painter's caulk, contact cement, tape, googly eyes, a rotary tool, heat gun, glue gun, and a razor knife are recommended. In the kit, you have your face piece, top center, the 2 top side pieces, googly eyes for rivets, the 2 bottom side pieces, your side overlays, the pieces for the top vents, and the piece for the rudder. Start with your face piece. Use a heat gun to heat your piece on the bottom and the top. Then mold the top area over something round. Allow the bottom section to hang off. You'll want that section to just be curved. Next, take your top center piece and heat it on both sides. Then mold the entire piece over something round. Heat your 2 side pieces on both sides and then mold them as well. For glue, I recommend contact cement. I recommend applying 2 coats to all edges. Apply glue to the edge beside the eye, above the eye, and in the V section. On the top piece, apply glue to your front edges and about halfway down the sides, and to the top edges on the flare at the bottom. On the side pieces, apply glue to the front edge, the top edge, the V area, and the back edge. Once your glue set, you can press your pieces together, starting with the face and top section. Press your V section together, keeping your top edges flush. Next, glue your side piece in place, starting at the side of the eye. Then line up the top edge of the eye and press your pieces together, working your way to the back. Next, line the back edge of the side piece up with the back flare on the top piece. Press your pieces together, starting on the outside edge and working to the inside. Next, take your bottom side pieces and heat them with your heat gun, and curve it along its length and a little bend near the back. On your side pieces, apply glue to your back and top edges, as well as the small notch at the front. On your top section, apply glue to the bottom notch and along the bottom edge all the way around. Press your side piece in place starting at the front. Line up your notch and press your pieces together, working your way to the back. Once you get to the back, press your center seam together. Next, take your side overlay piece. Line up the bottom back edge with the center seam on the back of the helmet. Line up the bottom edge of the overlay with the bottom edge of the helmet. From the back of the helmet to the front, and you can use tape to hold the overlay in place. Line up the center strip on the overlay with the back center edge and tape it in place. With your pieces taped down, you can trace your edges to make reference lines. Line up your top strip with the center seam on the back and slightly cover the top seam on the helmet with the top edge of the overlay. Then line up the top strip where it hides the seam on the side of the helmet. Once you have your reference lines marked, you can remove your overlay piece. Apply glue to your marked areas on the side of the helmet and to the bottom surface area on the overlay. You can use tape on the top surface area of the overlay where you don't have glue. On the top and center strip of the overlay, roll your strips back and use the tape to hold them in a circle. This will hold them out of the way while you glue down the bottom strip. Now glue the overlay in place, starting at the center seam on the back of the helmet. Line up the bottom edge flush with the bottom of the helmet and work your way from the back to the front. Next, glue down the center strip, working your way from the front to the back. Then finish off the overlay by laying down your top strip, working your way again from the front to the back. Before you glue down your second overlay, apply glue to all the ends. Take the rudder and heat it on both sides to heat seal it. You'll want to hold it flat until it cools. Next, apply glue to the reference line in the center of the helmet and to the bottom curved edge on the rudder. Line up the rudder at the back of the helmet. It should touch the overlay piece. Glue the piece in place, working your way from the back to the front, following your reference line. When lining up the rudder, be patient and take your time to get it straight. If the top of the helmet isn't lining up with the arch on the rudder, you can squeeze the sides of the helmet in to change the curve on the top of the helmet to match the rudder. Next, take your piece for the vent. Use a rotary tool with a grinding stone to round over the front edge, top and bottom. Then bevel the bottom outside edge all the way around. Next, heat the vent piece top and bottom. Then roll the sides together along its length. With your piece folded, make small bends down, working your way along the top. Work the piece back and forth like this to make it curve along the length. The goal is to have the vent match the curve on the helmet. The top front edge of the vent will line up with the corner on the top seam of the helmet, and the inside edge of the vent will line up with the top edge of the hole in the helmet. Line up the vent on top of the helmet and use tape to hold it in place. Once you have the vent where you want it, trace the edges to make reference lines. Remove the vent and then apply glue to the bottom edges and to the marked area on the helmet. Once the glue is set, you can press your piece in place. Start at the top front edge and work your way to the back. Then glue down your bottom edge, working your way from the back to the front. Next, take your googly eyes and apply glue to the bottom and to the 4 reference circles on each eye. Once the glue is set, you can press your googlies in place. To make the weld seams, you can use painter's caulk. You could also use quick seal in the squeeze tube, To make the weld beads is pretty easy. Just apply pressure and keep it even as you work your way down the seam, and just pause for a second to form the bead, and then pull back a little bit and pause again to form the next bead. To seal the foam, I recommend using PLASTI dip. I generally use 2 light coats followed by 2 heavy coats. The PLASTI dip may bend the fin as it dries. Once the PLASTI dip's dry to the touch, you should be able to bend it back straight before it completely cures. You can use the heat gun to straighten it back out if you need to. Once your base coat's dry, you can apply paint. I recommend using 2 light coats followed by 1 to 2 heavy coats. I used an airbrush to add a little detail and tone down the gold on the helmet just a little bit. But you can always use brushes or rags to get similar effects. To finish off the paint job and seal everything, I use 2 coats of clear. For the lenses, you'll have 2 pieces of plastic and some tint. To pull the backing off of the tint, you can put tape on each side at one corner and pull it apart to separate the film. Next, place one edge of the tint down on your lens and stick it in place, working from one side to the other. You can use scissors to trim the lenses so that they fit the eye areas. Next, line up the lenses on the inside of the helmet and use tape to hold them in place. I recommend using a hot glue gun to glue around the edges of the lenses to hold them in place permanently. Alright guys, there it is, the Rocketeer helmet. So, tip number 1, put the rudder on last. I learned that the hard way. I recommend putting on these vents because this rudder kind of gets in the way if you put it on first. So that's the first tip, put this part on last. Tip number 2, when you go to put on the fin, you may have a gap at the front of the rudder here just because this is wanting to be more round. If that's the case, when you put this together, if you push in on the sides, that is going to stretch the front out and fill that gap. Now once you have the rudder and everything glued together, it's a good idea to come back with the heat gun, heat it up on the inside and your outside walls, and you can actually push this together and shape it. You'll want to get all that done before you start to seal and paint it, guys. So it's just a matter of heating it. Now when you do heat it, be aware that you can reactivate the glue, especially on these overlay pieces, and it could start to separate. If that happens, just press it back in place and hold it down, make sure it resets well. Now another tip on the lenses, when you're putting on the tint, you might want to go in the house, get in a clean area. I'm out here doing it in my shop and I always have a lot of dust and stuff floating around, and that's why in the lenses itself you might see some bumps and stuff that look like bubbles. It's not, it's just dust and trash that actually blew in while I was doing it. So that's a great tip. Make sure you're in a clean space when you actually lay down the tint. Now if you're planning on adding the welds like I did, which I highly recommend because it looks so much better with the welds, you don't have to use that big old cock gun like I did. You could just pick you up a tube, a quick seal, and get the exact same effect. Now, as far as the total build on this helmet, guys, I'm going to rate it right around a 3.5 to 4. For the most part, it's a pretty simple build. It doesn't have that many parts. However, the parts are pretty big. So if you have a second person to help you hold a few pieces, that's going to be a big plus for you. The most difficult part for most people will be making the bevels on the vents right here that go under here to help it fit nice and tight to it. So if you haven't done a lot of that, my biggest recommendation is to start with some scrap foam. Practice making those bevels. Now on your rotary tool, I recommend using a grinding stone, not a sanding drum. The sanding drums look like sandpaper and they remove material very quickly. So if you hit it too hard or anything, you can take out a big chunk of that. My biggest recommendation is go ahead and stick with that grinding stone. Just work it a little bit at a time. That way it removes it slower and it also makes it cleaner when you're done. And the last tip I got for you guys is when you go to seal it with PLASTI dip. Number one, you make sure you have this fin heat sealed real well. That's going to help stiffen it. But when you spray it with the PLASTI dip, start with a very light coat on one side then the other, because as it dries, it's going to want to pull the fin one way or the other. So don't walk away and watch it. And when it starts to actually bend, you can take your finger and just hit right there on the corner and push it back and hold it straight as it dries. The only other thing you could probably do is have a stick on the top with some pins through the top to hold it straight as it dries. But PLASTI dip dries pretty quick, so you know, around 30 minutes you should have this all set where it'll stay. All right, guys, now it's time to look at some of the other stuff I'm working on and what's coming out pretty soon. So I got the Captain America armor that I'm working on. I'm gonna try and get that out next month is my plan on this. You can see I actually made more of a female version on this. It's the exact same kit. You'll see when I put the video out. It's just heating the foam and working a little bit better to give it more of a female look. And you see I came up with a mask for this, which if you're interested in, there's a free download. Just check out my how to use templates video, and I have a free download on that if you're interested in putting together a mask. And also, that's a great one to start with if you're a beginner, guys. So the next piece, guys, is the part of the tactical armor. I got the thigh piece here. I'm trying to wrap up that tactical armor and get all the pieces out for you guys. And another prop I'm revisiting is the laser visor, guys. Just doing a new design on it and plan on putting this out for a kit as well. Now, the whole reason I got into prop building is because I like to make short films. Props are expensive, so I started learning how to make them so I can put them in the short films that I will make. And I've got away from making those. So I'm trying to get back to making those. And one of the things on my mind is making some kind of Tron video. I'm a big fan of it. So designing a disc here from Tron, from the second one. So you can check that out. This will be a kit once I get it all figured out. Now, I don't plan on making it glow or putting lights in it or anything. This is going to be a prop. And when you do VFX and stuff, I can put this in and actually put the glow in it during post and everything. So that's my plan for this prop, but I will be putting it out for a kit for you guys. Now, if you guys have been asking about the Iron Man armor, I'm back to work on it. I kind of got sidetracked and put it to the side. Part of it is because my skill level just wasn't where I needed to be at the time, and I wasn't getting the parts to come together the way I wanted to. So I actually put it to the side, developed my skills a little bit more, and now I'm back to work on it. I've already started redesigning the ab section and the cod piece. So my goal for this year is to have this 100% done by the end of the year with the videos out for you guys, and hopefully a kit and some templates. Well, that's it for this video, guys. God bless. I'll see you on the next one.